Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Banking on Experience. Really excited about today's episode. Today's topic is all about how financial institutions can foster growth and acquisition through marketing. We're going to talk about that, a subject near and dear to my heart as a marketer. Stay tuned. Everyone, welcome to the episode of Banking on Experience. Today we are joined with our guest, Nicky Senyard at Fintel Connect. Nicky, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Nicky, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a late breakfast and I had coffee, scrambled eggs, ham, and focaccia.
Oh man, that sounds amazing. Better than mine. I didn't have anything. I'm a slacker today. Nicky,
there you go.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of who you are, what Fintel Connect is all about?
Yep, sure. First of all, thanks very much for having me. It's always very cool to find niches that follow your own passion, and this is one of mine. Financial institutions, money, and marketing. What a great mix. So thanks for having me. I love niche businesses. Let's start with that. So I love being able to go really deep into something as opposed to really broad and wide. So this is my second niche business. The first business that I had, I actually exited from, that was in this acquisition area for performance marketing. But second time around, I decided to go into an area that I thought made a lot of difference to everybody, but probably is a little misunderstood, which is money and finance. So Fintel Connect specializes in fintech businesses, financial institutions like bank and insurance tech, and we drive net new customers to business based on performance. Now, this means that you're not paying for the clicks, you're not paying for the eyeballs, you're not paying for the impressions, you only pay for the customers that you get. And for a lot of people in fintech marketing, this is a really new concept. The big guys have been doing it for years and years and years, but the guys that are now just getting involved in digital and are sort of like skinning their knees and stubbing their toes and all the rest of it don't actually realize that performance marketing, which is what we do, can actually be a big part of their acquisition funnel. So I'm really pleased. I'm sort of evangelizing, pay for only what you get when it comes to messaging.
I love that concept. I do very little business with vendors who cannot prove me value first. And as a marketer, especially as a CMO, like I'm constantly trying to figure out if we invest in this, are we going to get a return on it? And I know ROI is somewhat of a metric that people don't really like to talk about, but I mean, ultimately, like really, that's what it boils down to.
It's one of those things that I try to explain to people that just think all marketing and sales are the same thing. And I say to them, basically, I break the front of the funnel into two sections. One is branding. You need to invest in your brand marketing and you need to invest in the noise and your value and all that sort of thing out there. But then the next thing is, if you're going to be paying for something, make sure it hits your bottom line in revenue. So make sure that your acquisition marketing gets you to acquire customers. And that's where performance marketing comes in really handy.
Yeah, I love the fact that you broke out brand as its own because, I mean, we all know this. Financial institutions likely don't spend enough time investing in their brand. It's pretty much historical fact there that's going on in this niche, right? So this is kind of why we decided to pick this topic and talk about it. But I mean, what do you think some of the big problems the financial institutions have? And kind of why we did pick this topic and why we feel like it's so important.
I think it comes down into two. I'm a good one. I love frameworks. I think it makes very complicated topics very easy to understand. And I break financial institutions in this marketing area there's two things that they need to take care of. One is that you need the infrastructure, which means you need a good digital account opening platform. You need good CRM tools. You need all of that infrastructure stuff to be in place, because if you're going to pour money up the top to get new clients in, you don't want them sieving out the bottom. You want them to stick in the funnel and do the things that you want them to do. So I think that for financial institutions, they've been whether that be community banks, whether it be credit unions, whether it be even probably not so much fintechs, but the other two more institutions that come from a land-based environment, they've been apprehensive to invest in technology because it is not only do you have to find it, but then you have to integrate it and then you have to manage it. And then, like there's a whole lot of steps that they're not used to. But then once you've got that all in place, it's not a build it and they will come. It's a build it and then market it in an acquisition way. And I think there's just a lot of steps. But the great thing is it doesn't have to be difficult and it doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs some persistence and some good research. Completely agree. And I'm actually selfishly really glad that you mentioned CRM because it's a big missing piece that we know. Just for selfish reasons, as CRMNEXT, we know this. We talk to so many financial institutions that have never used a CRM. To be honest with you, like the term CRM just has gotten a really bad rap because it's meant to help build a relationship. It's a customer relationship management. And it's done the complete opposite of that for so long. It's actually caused more problems than it's actually fixed. And that's what we're trying to help fix is help bridge the gap of the experience that you're trying to build with your customers and members and the experience that you're trying to build deep within the technology so that it can be actionable. And I think people don't realize that there's two parts of the funnel. One is acquisition and the other one is retention. So performance marketing is really good for acquisition and CRM is really good for retention. But the fact is, like anything, it has to be used well and you have to choose a good partner. So we all know that not all things are built equal. So the thing is, that's why I'm saying the research comes into play. Because you actually have to look at who you're going to work with and make sure that they've got the track record, they've got the experience, and they've got the same values as you moving forward. Couldn't agree more. So we've talked about some of the challenges that people make. I mean, we didn't really touch on how they solve it. How do you think, just high level, how do you think marketers at financial institutions or those that may own marketing, maybe they're actually not a marketer, it could be somebody else, right? How do they solve these challenges and issues? Again, I think it comes back to I'm a firm believer in begin with the end in mind. And work back from that. I think all businesses, no matter how big or small they are, they have a mandate to grow because the old saying is when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. So I think everybody wants to grow. I think everybody, has a mandate to grow. But I think what happens is in this digital age, there's things that banks need to start to become aware of, which is what is your customer lifetime value? You need to find things like what's your acquisition cost now? The thing is that in performance marketing, where we live and work, there is a marketplace for an acquiring cost for a new customer. So, and I think what happens is that banks start to need to do their own homework, like what is a new customer worth to us? What is a new credit card customer worth, or what is a new mortgage client worth, or what is a new customer worth to us as a business? And once you start to do some research into those sorts of things, it makes you well resourced to go out there and start building. I think sometimes people put the cart before the horse and say, well, I need to spend money on marketing or I need to spend money on advertising, and then just sort of go out there and start spending because they're not quite sure what they need to do. And everybody says, I've got to be on Facebook. Everybody says that I've got to be on Instagram. All right, but the fact is, make sure that you're very clear, is this brand marketing or is this acquisition marketing? And if it's acquisition marketing, what am I prepared to pay and what are the costs involved? So I think it goes back to what you said before, is that there's definitely, let's say if problem is growth, but there's some good stuff that you need to do behind that, which has got to do with knowing what you're prepared to spend and knowing what you need to get back in return, which is your ROI comment right at the very beginning. One of the things that I wanted to highlight that I call these micro journeys that you mentioned, credit card, mortgage. I call them a micro journey. And here's why I call it that. Because when we look at lifetime value of a customer, it's completely unique based on if they are in one of those areas, right?
And so if the lifetime value of a customer and your focus is getting people to get credit cards, right? But you have a better lifetime value on those that actually get a mortgage, which priority would you take as a business for growth?
I think it's so funny that you should say that. I've spoken to so many FIs, and each of them, different asset sizes, different locations, different branch numbers, all that sort of stuff. And it's really interesting is that what you focus on actually comes from your board, absolutely comes from the management team, and it comes from not where the value is now, but what the growth opportunities in the area are. So I think it's so funny. I've spoken to some really small asset-sized FIs, and they are more digitally savvy and hungry than some of these guys that have got, $2 billion under management or whatever else. And you think, what's the difference here? And the difference is the people. So I think where it comes down to is everybody's got their adoption rates, like everybody's got their profile and appetite for risk, or everybody's got where they see the opportunity coming from. And I think what happens is that it's all got to do with personal preference and what you see as the vision of your business and where it's going. So I'm sorry, that's not definitely it's not a scientific answer to that question. But I've just decided there's too many factors that we can't control as marketers or we don't have insight into. And so I think we just need to ask the hard questions like, what makes you focus on this? What do you think the long-term effort is going to be? And that will help us focus them on what they need to be doing.
And I think you're spot on, because that helps drive home the point of us just a little bit ago. We were just talking about the fact that you really have to start understanding where to prioritize your time. And in order for you to prioritize your time, you need to identify which goals you want to focus on. And those goals, they go all the way up to the executive level. And that helps also prioritize where you should focus some of those growth and acquisition models. Let's dive deeper into the growth and acquisition side. Let's start with growth. What are some areas that FIs can focus for growth that you think? I know everything is not necessarily a one-to-one across all FIs, so it can be unique. But generally speaking, what are some areas for growth that FIs could be focused on?
I think it really comes back down to one of the things that I've come to appreciate is that everybody's sort of like got a footprint. Do you know what I mean? Like it depends. I think there's a big opportunity for all FIs to get onto digital. I mean, it's just beyond nothing. I don't discount any of your community relationships. I don't discount anything that you've done before. But if you're not allocating at least 20% of your marketing budget towards digital, and digital transparency first, a lot of people in FIs don't actually understand how much data that they can get from a digital campaign or from digital marketing or digital anything, because it's all trackable. So they're used to sort of like putting a billboard up and sponsoring the local kids soccer club, and they're used to doing things that are ambient noise. And I would put all of those things down to branding. But when you get to digital, you can track everything. So one of the things that we're really focusing on with the clients that we're talking to at the moment is, even if you don't want to spend any money through performance marketing, just make sure you've got transparency. Because our technology is really unique in the fact that it allows you to see the point between where traffic and conversion happen. So everybody will have Google Analytics and everybody will be able to know from an account origination system what's open. But there's sort of a gap in between that, where traffic starts to go into the origination system, but the origination system doesn't know where the traffic's come from. So we're that bridge in the middle. So even if you're not going to, spend a whole lot of money in performance marketing, spend your money to get transparency, because with that, you'll get data, and with data, you can make better choices.
Oh, I love what you just talked about. I am a data marketer. That's how I grew into this position that I'm in today, is from becoming the master in the room with the data. And I cannot agree with you more. I mean, here's the thing, like, financial institutions historically already have more data than most organizations have.
And it's public.
Yeah. So I mean, like, okay, well, let's just for fun. Okay. Let's use a single data point at a financial institution. I'll use birthday as an example. How can a financial institution run a digital campaign on birthdays?
There's two ways that I would do that. I dig into the data of what you've got now and where the customer value is now and where their gaps are, because I'm doing it from a gap perspective, not from utilization perspective, right? So let's take the gap point of birthdays, and you actually realize that you've got an aging population in your branch, that they're actually, what's happening is you're missing the whole millennial group. Let's not even go into Generation Z. Like, we're just missing all millennials. So then I'd say as a marketer, millennials, where are millennials? They're on social media. So what we've got doing then is sort of like, these platforms are so cool in the way that you can target. And let's not even go to TikTok. Let's just go to Instagram and Facebook, where the platforms are already there and they've got the matrix and what you can match and what you can't. I think that what it does is the data gives you insight, and then from insight you have choices. I know that, buying ads on Facebook may be a very scary thing, but the fact is every bank, I haven't met a bank or a financial institution out there that doesn't have a Facebook page. So then you can start a whole content strategy related to millennials, your area, your bank's values. It's endless what you can do without even spending money.
And that's just growth, by the way. We haven't even touched on acquisition. And I totally put Nicky on the spot there. We did not plan to talk about that little campaign that she just mentioned. But from an acquisition perspective, right, on the other side of that coin is you have these birthdays, and you can leverage the social media, email, text message, whatever it might be. Give your members $50 in their savings account or their checking account. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Do it because it's a form of acquisition. It's them seeing you do something that's personal that no one else is doing. And I know that many of you might think that this is happening. I can tell you, as somebody who is a customer and member of several banks and community banks and even some credit unions, I can tell you firsthand, this does not happen for me across almost any of them.
And that to me is retention marketing. So, this is where we break it down to. I'm talking about growth, external marketing, net new clients coming in based on the gap in my database from birth dates. You're talking about, this is the perfect balance between acquisition and CRM. You're talking about, let's remarket to the people that are in our database to actually get them engaged and happy with the brand. So yeah, you guys out there don't actually understand how you're going to be double whammy to you.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're coming close to time, but I wanted to touch on one more question if I could. You know some financial institutions that are likely doing this well. So I wanted you to give the audience a feel for who you feel like are some really good examples that do both growth or maybe just growth separately than the acquisition side or altogether.
That's and we did prepare this, and I'm sort of backing out of this because I don't like comparisons. Right? Because I think when you compare, someone's always going to be better and someone's always going to be worse. So what I would like to say in that is that to be successful in this area, there you go. Let me be generic. And I know this isn't probably what you're looking for, but
it's totally fine.
That's it. To be successful in the area, you need to set your own goals, because the fact is that what somebody else's goals are may not be yours. And I think that financial institutions need to decide to get into this, there's going to be some risk, right? So you need to decide what your risk tolerance is. Going gently into this, nobody will destroy their brand and nobody will embarrass themselves. But going in this with a deliberate effort not to back out, it's almost like you have to commit and you have to keep on going, because you will learn and you will grow along the way. You need the structure behind you in terms of the data and the tools. You can't go into digital without the tools. Like you can't actually run your treasury area without a core system. Just don't think digital is something that you can do in a vacuum. You can't. You need to have your objective and your goal. You need to have really good tools, and then you need to be gentle with yourself. The fact is, you aren't going to win every time, and it's not going to be a big lift. But as long as you and your team are researching and looking at best practices, and there's some really good examples of best practice, And I would look at your industry associations. They're the ones that are going to be the best one to give you, whether it's the credit union association or whether it's the community banking associations. Those are the ones that are going to give you access to really good examples that are more comparable. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to compare themselves to Robinhood, right? That's a fintech on steroids. So the fact is that if I give you an example of what Robinhood does, then that wouldn't necessarily be something that you can relate to. Because I think it's always good to be sort of like aspirational within your bubble. But I think comparing yourselves to sort of like a 800-pound gorilla, if you're a chimpanzee, it's not a good example, not a good way to go.
I'm with you. I will say this, just to be the devil's advocate here for just a second. I will say that some of these fintech companies, okay, like Robinhood and others, are doing digital so well that some financial institutions are going to be out of business if they do not act now on their digital strategy.
Yeah, and I think, so I've got a slightly different take on this. Not any less valuable or more important, just a slightly different take. Somebody always said to me philosophically that you only win when you play your own game. If you play somebody else's game, then you'll never win, because they'll always be the master of their own game and you'll always be the competitor that's trying to make themselves into something that they're not. So when it comes down to, let's say, a community banking level, what you need to decide as a community bank is what your value based is and how are you going to demonstrate that online. You don't have the same value base as a Robinhood. You don't have the same resources. You don't have the same technology platform, but you have what you have and you'll grow. What we're actually finding from a lot of the publishers and influencers that we speak to is they're looking for fresh content. They're sort of sick of dealing with the tier one brands that say the same thing the same time and sort of like recycle messaging and promotions and all the rest of it. They want to give their audience and their readership a local-based option. They want to give them the local bank and that they want to do a review on the local bank on its values and what it's doing. So this is what I'm saying is that I think digital banks and credit unions just need to work out how they do their own job online as opposed to trying to compete in a marketplace that they're not. But I think the big message is get online, not try to be something that you're not online. And just because there's an 800-pound gorilla in the room doesn't mean there's not the messaging out. You know, you can still do this. You just don't play their game, play your game. You are strong. Community banks and credit unions exist for a reason. People want to deal with local. They want to deal with people they know, but they want to do it online. I think this whole episode of the pandemic has shown us that we can do a lot online, more so than we probably thought we could, because we're in a habit. So this whole time has changed our habits. So let the banking and FI institutions capitalize on that and actually grow in an area that they know is going to be sustainable moving forward.
I love the way you put that. You put it in a lot more eloquent terms than I did, but I will say that you're spot on because people have to be able to act on this stuff now. So when you hear Nicky talk about that, I mean, she's telling you like, don't wait to get online. And that's my same message. Don't wait or it will be too late, right? And you don't want to always be playing the behind game, right? And I think that that's something that I'm a firm believer in. I know that a lot of the financial institutions that we talk to, they struggle with that and figuring out when's the right time to strike. Well, the right time to strike is right now. It's not.
The right time to strike was about 3 years ago.
That too.
But the thing is that spilt milk can't sort of like cry over something that's already spilt. But the fact is that you have to sustain it. Begin with the end in mind. Don't start the way you don't mean to finish. I always used to say to people when they started to get into organic social media, I said, start the way you mean to finish, because the fact is if you start to post 3 times a day and then get sick of it, then what will happen is you will train your audience to expect something that you're not prepared to go through with. And I think that's what banks are concerned about and financial institutions are concerned about, that, you know, that what happens if this doesn't work? And we're just saying to you all, it will work. It may not work the first time, it may not work the second time, but as long as you're gentle with yourself and gentle with your expectations, then it will be productive.
Really good takeaway. Be consistent. So we've talked about growth and acquisition. We've talked about overcoming some of the challenges and making sure that you go online, be digital, acting on it now. Nicky, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'd love to have you on again and we can talk about something completely different, but thank you for joining us. If there is a place that people wanted to go to reach out to you or Fintel Connect, where could they go?
Absolutely on LinkedIn. So Nicky Senyard at LinkedIn, they can find me there, or basically find me on Fintel Connect. I'm there as well. I am passionate about this. If we can help in any way, shape or form, it doesn't have to be difficult and it doesn't have to be scary. And I think a lot of times people are just wanting some reassurance that it isn't sort of a black hole out there and people have done it before. And we absolutely would love to help people get into this place where they have a new lease on life and growth. So yeah, we'd love to help.
Love it. Thank you again, Nicky. Appreciate it.